Story 1. I loved my previous job. I was working for my favorite sports team, a team I grew up loving. I would work weekends, holidays, and volunteer for everything I could possibly volunteer for, all while making barely more than minimum wage. As soon as they saw fit, they eliminated my position as well as others. Never again will I get emotionally attached to my job, because that devastated me. As much as I enjoy my current job, I do not go above and beyond in any way, shape, or form. I do exactly what is expected of me. Nothing more, nothing less. Need extra help on a weekend? Nope, not doing it. Need more people to work an event? Not me. Need volunteers to work on a special project? Sorry, no can do. I know I should not punish my current employer due to the actions of my previous employer, but it is what it is, and I feel exactly zero bad about it. If corporate America can get away with doing these things, then I deserve to have at least some control over my life. Story 2. I was a missile launch officer for the United States Air Force a long time ago, and I definitely do not want to do that again because I do not want to be in charge of blowing up the world. Also, it was very cold and noisy in the command capsule. Story 3. I don't think I could do retail again. What was supposed to be a 16-hour-a-week part-time job while I was in high school turned into the manager calling me in the middle of the night to come in at 3 to 4 a.m. begging for help unloading the truck they just found out was coming in. Most of the other employees, including both assistant managers, were elderly women who either couldn't or wouldn't assist with unloading. I settled into a schedule of going to work at 3:30 a.m. and then going to school several days a week. The last time I saw that store manager, she was being carried out of the store on a stretcher by paramedics after having a massive panic attack. She was doing more than 12 hours 7 days a week. The amount of pressure corporate placed on her was unreal. Story 4. Work for a giant corporation. Being a faceless number expected to function as an unquestioning robot is mind-numbingly depressing, demotivating, and dehumanizing. Story 5. For starters, I won't mix personal and work relationships. I learned this lesson the hard way. I started casually hooking up with a girl at work. We were both single at the time. When I found a girl worth seriously dating, after breaking things off with a fellow employee, she started rumors and made the work environment difficult for myself and a few others. Secondly, I'll communicate in writing with individuals I question or don't openly trust, including managers and supervisors. I've been told one thing by a fellow employee as well as a manager, only to have them change the story at a later date, making me look bad. Even if we have a verbal communication, I'll send an email summary of the conversation. In some instances, I'll blind carbon copy my personal email account for further backing. Finally, I'll use vacation and sick time regularly. At least every 1 to 2 months. I'll arrange to either use a half day or full day as a sick day. If I do a half day and like the workplace, I'll arrange this a few days in advance. Otherwise, I'll email the night before or morning of to inform the necessary people. For the time off, I either relax at home or take myself out on a date. Anything to unwind and relax. Human resources generally can't ask for more detail, but the few times a general employee asks, I just mention it's medical and I'm not comfortable sharing. Story 6. Not even my experience really, but my former coworker. No matter how long I work somewhere, I will never feel any sense of loyalty towards any employer. Ever. My coworker was awesome. She had worked at this place for like 20 years. Everyone loved her, and she was great at her job. She worked so hard and sacrificed so much for that job because she had such a strong sense of loyalty and responsibility. She was wonderful and really loved her job. You know the type. The company ended up hiring someone new in middle management, and this new lady started shaking things up in a bad way. My coworker brought up some issues we had encountered, and the new manager clearly didn't like that. After that, our insane new manager saw my coworker as oppositional. This new middle manager started doing everything she could to make this poor woman's life hell, including whispering in the ears of upper management. After a few months, she convinced them that one of their most loyal and dependable employees, who they had known and worked with for 20 years, was now a liar, a bully, aggressive, and impossible to work with. After a few months, they fired my coworker. She was the dream boomer employee who had given everything to her employer and trusted that they would do the same for her. But they didn't. Nothing she did mattered to them. She was absolutely heartbroken. Everyone was shocked. I left shortly after. I don't know what happened to her, but I hope she's doing well after all of that. She deserves good things in life. Story 7. In high school, I loved photography and would bring my digital single-lens reflex camera wherever I thought I might get good pictures. Then I worked at a photography studio part-time during college. It's been 10 years, and I still haven't taken pictures in my free time. Story 8. Being a really outstanding worker just means they give you more work to pick up the slack of other people getting paid more or the same. I choose work that makes me look good, rather than saying yes to every single job and making someone else look good at my expense. Story 9. I will never recommend burial over cremation. Any way you can avoid using a funeral home or paying them for anything will be my goal. Predatory, bait and switch, astronomical markups, and so on. And that's only because I worked for a concrete company that did vaults and burials closely with funeral homes. Story 10. Work night shift. I used to work night shift at a gas station by myself. I have kids now. I'm not the plucky, smartass I used to be. I'm terrified of the danger I used to laugh about. Story 11. I won't ignore the warning signs of mental abuse from a manager. I'll immediately document and get legal support because it went obviously very poorly with human resources. Story 12. I will never work in a university again. It is a complete and total bureaucratic and social bubble where people manage to do as little as possible to hang on to their jobs while actively resisting any kind of innovation. There are 40 levels of approval to buy paperclips. Story 13. I will never work for a new or starting restaurant again. It is someone else's dream, and to get the business started, you have to be as invested in the dream as the owners are. But the owners are also beholden to the investors. It's a lot of thankless work, and while you have to be totally invested to help it be successful, you never get adequately rewarded or appreciated if you are not a co-owner. Story 14. Load 100-pound bags of flour into a boxcar. 1,000 bags per car. Squat and catch them off the conveyor onto your shoulder. The stacks are 12 high, so you catch the 10th, 11th, and 12th bags on top of your head so you can reach the top. Oh, and you load alone. Story 15. I hardly do any overtime anymore. I'll do it if it's operationally required, but I practically never volunteer for it. In my line of work, there's always a large amount of overtime available. Years ago, because of the way our union agreements worked, the employer only had to compensate us with time, not pay, and they mercilessly took advantage of that. I ended up taking an entire December off because my employer wouldn't pay us out our ridiculously banked overtime. I don't work directly for that employer anymore, but I'm well paid and these days value my off time far more than an extra few $100s on a paycheck. Burnout in my line of work is really high, and it's sometimes kind of funny to see upper management do a double take when nobody volunteers for overtime. Story 16. Work for a startup. Every time it goes the same way. Early days, we are family. Great job doing what you are doing. Middle days, when investors still think it is going to work. We are family, but we need to get over the mountain. You can do that, right? Later days, when investors need a return or they will let someone go. Make us profitable now. Get it over the line or you are out. Story 17. I used to work for a fish processing company in Aberdeen, Scotland. The owner was very unpleasant, similar to a harsh character but without any charm. I lasted 3 months and was fired. I never bought any fish products made by them ever again and never went back to Sainsbury's after. Story 18. Answer my phone in the morning during unscheduled shifts. It was my first job, a corner store literally a stone's throw from my house. Literally across the road. Visible from my house. I'd work all my shifts and then some. He'd call me very early in the morning on my days off, and I had had previous jobs where this was necessary. So I'm actually able to speak correctly when answering the phone, but not when you wake me up in person. So I'd always just say yes for whatever reason. So for a year, he had the most reliable, hardworking person he could ever want or ask for. I learned a lot from that job, though. Learned not to take unnecessary nonsense, not to overwork myself, and it gave me a great work ethic. He was a nice man but could be a bit of a bully in close proximity at times, but I still consider him a friend. Story 19. Allow customers to grab one more thing after the store is closed. Too many take advantage and either take too long or one thing turns into five things. The store is closed. Get out or face trespassing. Story 20. A past experience taught me to set limits. I used to take on more than I could, thinking I could handle anything, but now I know it's important to take care of myself and be realistic about what I can do. I learned to prioritize and say no when necessary. Story 21. Work after hours. At my last job, I often worked late and was asked to stay and work on new projects, even occasionally on weekends. Most of this was to help secure new business from a client, so I understood that it was beneficial for everyone. We secured the business. Then the COVID-19 pandemic hit. Even though our client was still doing very well, comfort food sales soared during lockdowns, I got laid off. There was no appreciation for all the extra time and the missed time with my then 2-year-old. Just a curt goodbye. To make matters worse, I saw some work I had done for the client make it to market the following Christmas season, unchanged from when I had worked on it. I got a new job with a better work-life balance. Interestingly, I did work for the same client, and it became more and more obvious how much unnecessary grind culture was imposed in the previous job. Never again. Additionally, the chief executive officer had received a bonus in recent years that could have supported about 500 jobs at my salary level. So, it's unreasonable to exhaust yourself for someone else to make that much money when they'll easily let you go when things get tight. Story 22. I do not work in jobs where coworkers are mean to each other. Yeah, a little hazing and lighthearted ribbing is fine. That's the sign of a healthy team. But I do not work at jobs where some team members are clearly hated, where there's a lot of mean gossip, where coworkers yell at each other. Story 23. I'm retired, but here are 3 things I learned. 1. Work-life balance is very important for mental health. A boss who denigrates his customers in private will also speak poorly about you behind your back. I came to an interview dressed in casual office attire, slacks, and a collared short-sleeve polo shirt, almost identical to the boss. I was told the dress code was long-sleeve button-down shirts, even though customers weren't allowed in the offices and trips to customers were perhaps once a week. Meanwhile, the boss is exempt. Tucson, Arizona. In the summer. Just nope. Story 24. Not really a job per se, but a hobby that I got paid a little money for. I played acoustic guitar for one summer in a bar about 20 years ago. It was in a summer resort town, so lots of vacationers and lots of drunk people. It got old after maybe 2 gigs. Playing for drunk people is frustrating. I had a strict no Jimmy Buffett rule, which immediately annoyed all the boomers wearing Tommy Bahama shirts and sandals with black socks. I could drink for free while I was there, so by the end of the summer I would do my first set, drink 6 beers, and do one more quick set before I packed up and went home. Story 25. Work in a restaurant. No matter the chain or family-owned restaurant, it's all the same nonsense. Horrible managers who have no life and terrible relationships with their families because they don't know when to turn it off. Most cooks are sketchy drug addicts or sexual predators. Most servers are never honest with tip-outs, and almost every customer thinks they own you just because they're buying a meal and you're wearing a name tag. The only thing that kept me for so long is the quick cash at the end of the night. Once you get out, you don't ever think of going back. And there is a reason that everyone who stays has a worn-out, tired look. I can't speak for Michelin star restaurants, but at every one I've been to, the servers looked on edge, and the managers were overbearing and stopped at the table too many times. I think they're more trying to convince you that the food is good and the service is special than letting you formulate your own opinion. Story 26. I will not keep working at a place where both toilets are broken and completely unusable. I should have quit as soon as the toilets broke and not kept working there. It has been 7 months since they broke, and the company still has not fixed anything. It really shows how much they care. Luckily, I now work at a place with 7 working toilets. Story 27. Helping people without them asking for help. This always left me with work and emotional overload. If it's not your job, don't do it. In the end, you will be charged for your work. Story 28. Go to work during inclement weather, putting my life at risk. Got stuck waiting tables the night Hurricane Harvey hit. I only had about 2 tables because everyone was staying home, and when I finally got out, it was really bad. It took me over an hour to drive home, trying different routes and driving in circles looking for a road home that wasn't flooded. I seriously almost didn't make it. I have never felt so scared and helpless. Story 29. Work in an office. Never again after more than a decade of taking criticism from people because my profession is auditing. It's so toxic being in an office setup. Story 30. In information technology for 30 years, I will not make friends in the office. Early in my career, I was so popular. Everyone wanted me to be their personal IT support so they would not open up help desk tickets. It was so hectic that if you were not available for all your friends' immediate needs, they might not be so friendly. After I moved on from that first IT job, I decided I would be friendly but would not be friends with the people I support.